Welcome to Short Scale Modelling. This is part 3 of AMT's Star Trek Next Generation Enterprise D. In part 2, I've done some prep work. In part 3, I'm going to be carrying on with this prep work. So there's quite a lot still to do. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. Moving on to the next section of the sulfur part and the hull, and just drilling in some more holes. The larger square openings you see there, the shuttle bay areas. So I don't have to do much to that. So again, like in part 2, I'm just using my pin drive to drill out these holes. It's back to the main hull and nacelle struts. I've taken off the tape and I'm just going to be filling in with a little bit of filler the areas that the tape covered. So I'm just using a little bit of sprue glue here. That's melted down sprue, melted down with the cement that you used to bond the kit with. And as I said, I'm just putting it in the areas where the tape was. This stuff's quite good at self-leveling as well, I've noticed. It does help if you wipe it down with a damp cloth as well, but as a rule, it does level okay. So now that the filler's in, I'm opening up the area to receive the stand. Now, depending on how you're going to display the model, you can have it with the saucer section detached, and this will dictate where you're going to be placing the stand. Because I have mine attached, the opening for the stand is right near the saucer section at the forward part of the hull. Well, not saucer section, the deflector dish. If I was having it separate, then the recess area just below my hand would be the area where I would cut into. And I'll use my knife to mark a spot where I want the cable to actually run down. So again, I'm using the knife like a little pilot hole before using the pin drive to make the initial hole itself. I'll then open it up with my knife to roughly about 5mm diameter, maybe a little bit more. This could well be opening up some more. I'll decide on that once I start putting the cables in. And once I've done the hole, I'm placing up the actual joint connecting part that goes onto the stand, because this will need an area for the cable to go through as well. So I'm just marrying that up, marking it, then drilling out the corresponding hole. So once it's drilled again, I'm using my knife just to open that up to roughly the same size at the diameter it's on the hull. Now this hull will be completely covered up, so don't worry if you do it too large. As long as you don't do it right to the edges, you'll be okay. And then it's back to themselves, and I'm marking up the area that I have to remove to receive the wire. So I'm just going to place the nacelle on, and then using my pencil, just make a mark on the actual nacelle so that I know where to cut. And once I'm happy with the area, I'll just highlight that more with a bit of pencil so I know exactly the area that I have to remove. And removing this is a fairly simple process. It's the same as with all the drilling. I'm making a pilot hole, then I'll use my knife just to open it up until I've removed most of the material. Now this is done inside the little slot you see here, because I need the strut to connect to the inside of the nacelle while the wire is coming up. This way that will hide the wire completely as it travels through the ship. So now that my hole's drilled, I'll just again take my knife and twist it around inside the hole, and that will start opening up the area. It's quite important not to go too close to the edges here, because there'll be a danger of the wire showing. And once I've got it open, I'm just using my file to get away any burrs or that on the plastic. I want this to be quite smooth, because also I don't want it to be cutting into the cable as I put it through. Now that's done, I'm removing some of the edges of the housing here. This is in order for the cable just to come through easily on the nacelle and lie flat as I feed it through to a light. So it's not going to be rising up and getting folded over a rigid plastic. I don't have to show any finesse here, just as long as I take a chunk out and it's big enough for the cable to come out. I may remove the entire bit of housing completely. I'm not too sure yet. I'll see once I start try fitting the lights and cable to see where I go on it. I've just used a little bit of tape to hold on the wire here, and I've written on it N and P, so that's neutral and positive. So when I start wiring things up, I know exactly where I am. So now it's time just to lightly sand down the sprue glue. It doesn't need much sanding at this point, but I want to get as close as possible to the actual ridge lines on the unit itself. However, I ran into a problem here. As I was sanding it down, I sanded it too far and I managed to break the cable. I tested it after this little sanding process here off camera, and there was no power going to a light. So I'm going to have to rewire the whole thing. This is very annoying, and I said be careful when sanding it, and I really should know this, but I just managed to nick the wire, and it got destroyed. So I have no option now but to rewire this. Luckily, the sprue glue site is still a little soft inside. It's not completely dry, which surprised me actually. So I was able to remove the wires fairly easily. I then have to, there's still a bit of gunk in there, so I'm using my scraper just to go down the trench and getting everything out, ready to replace the new wire. And once I'd cleaned it all up, it was time to place in the wire. Now I'm leaving the wire in the sheath this time. I've got some, this wire is around about, I think it's 0.5 millimeter wire going in, so it's very thin, but the sheath is still on, and that will protect the wire from over sanding. Also, I do not want to do that again. I should have used this wire in the first place, but I don't have a lot of it left, so I was just trying to conserve it. So lesson learned there, use what's meant to be used for it. Don't try and cut back, because mistakes can happen. As you can see there, I'm just using a little bit of super glue to hold down the wire, and I'm only putting it in little bits at a time, as in threading the wire inside the trench, and using the bottom of my tweezers just to tap it in so it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to be using plastic putty here just to cover up the wire. Sprue glue is not going to cut it this time. I need something a bit thicker, so the plastic putty is ideal for it. Now, because the wire is slightly thicker than the actual single strand wire I was using, I'm a bit concerned about sanding this down. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get it flush or not, but I'll see how that goes later on. But I've got a feeling it's going to leave a nasty scar along the nacelle struts. If it does, I'll see if I can think of something to sort it out. It's a bit of a shame, because the first try I got it fairly smooth. But yeah, there you go, these things happen. And it's only my model, it's not like I'm doing it for anyone else. So onwards and upwards. These things happen, as I keep on saying. I don't mind showing you my mistakes. This is a fairly big one, to be fair. But what can you do? It is what it is. So this is where I'll end the video. In part 4, I'll be going on to some bits of painting, which will be a happy change of pace from all the holes that I've been drilling. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you subscribe to the channel? If you do, hit that notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this video build, but also with all my future builds as well, of course. Hit that like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.